Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at a legendary Super Bowl comeback, but probably not in the way you're expecting. We're not breaking down plays today. We're going to break down consciousness. Yeah, you heard me. We're diving into a source that connects a huge championship win to things like quantum fields, martial arts, and the power of your subconscious mind. It's a pretty wild take, so let's get right into it. Right off the bat, the author of our source material knows this sounds a little out there. They're basically saying, look, I know you probably think I'm crazy, but just hear me out. And honestly, it's the perfect way to set the stage for a look at football that goes way, way beyond the usual X's and O's.
So, let's set the scene. It all starts with a moment that, every football fan remembers. A comeback that was so high stakes, it just seemed to defy all logic. Okay, picture this. The Kansas City Chiefs are on the ropes against the 49ers. They're down by 10 points late in the game. The author even says he almost gave up and went to bed. But then, something just clicked. There was this sudden, explosive shift. The whole energy of the Chiefs just changed. And in a mind-blowing 6 minutes, they completely took over the game, leaving this dominant 49ers team totally stunned. This insane turnaround is what kicks off the whole central question of our source material. It's pushing us to ask, was this just about brute force and some clever plays? Or was there something else going on, some kind of invisible factor that completely tipped the scales? So what was that invisible factor? Well, according to the source we're looking at today, the answer lies in something called the quantum field.
Now, the source is really quick to point out this isn't about physics in a lab coat, It's a state of collective consciousness. It's that magical moment when a team just gets in the zone. They start acting like a single, unified organism. It's like they're all connected by this invisible thread, anticipating each other's moves without a single word, just moving in perfect harmony. And to make this idea clearer, the author gives us this really cool metaphor, the conscious chessboard. Sure, the players are the pieces on the board, but the game isn't just about who moves where. It's won or lost based on their collective mental and emotional state. When a team manages to tap into that field, they reach this level of nonverbal synchronicity that makes them pretty much unstoppable. This leads us to an even more fascinating comparison. But to really get it, we first need a quick primer on the martial art of Aikido. At its core, Aikido isn't about meeting force with more force. It's actually the opposite. It's about yielding and redirection, using an opponent's own energy and momentum against them. And this is where it gets really interesting. The source applies that exact Aikido principle to football. You've got your traditional brute force football on one side, just a massive collision of push-pull energy. But then there's this new concept, football Aikido. Instead of just trying to overpower the defense, a team could actually redirect all that aggressive energy, turning their opponent's force into their own advantage. Wild, right? All right, so if that's the big theory, how does a team actually do it? Well, the source lays out this practical, let's say, unusual toolkit for athletes to start tapping into this higher level of performance. And this provocative question, which comes from an article the source cites, pivots us to our very first tool, nutrition. And it's probably not what you'd expect for a bunch of 300-pound linemen. The source brings up the Tennessee Titans as a prime example here. Back in 2018, a group of their players decided to adopt a plant-based diet. And the result? Well, they made the playoffs for the first time in years, and the players themselves credited the diet for their improved performance and faster recovery. The author even points out that Tom Brady's legendary TB12 method is mostly plant-based. So what's with the number 12? Well, that's the number of hours of sleep, and that includes naps, that the source says some of these elite athletes are getting. It makes the case that in a super high-trauma sport like football, sleep isn't some kind of luxury. It's the absolute primary time when the body can actually heal and repair itself. Next up, let's talk about emotional health. Using this quote from the Buddha, the source argues that for an athlete, getting angry isn't a strength. It's literally a self-inflicted poison. When you're angry, you flood your body with stress chemicals, like cortisol, which puts you in a fight-or-flight state that actually shuts down your body's ability to heal. So if anger is poison, how do you get it out of your system? The source proposes a really interesting technique called EFT, or Emotional Freedom Technique. As you can see, the process involves first identifying a negative emotion, like anger, and rating how intense it is. Then, while you're repeating a certain phrase, you physically tap on specific energy points on your body. The whole goal is to release that negative emotional charge. To explain this next concept, the source gets really creative and uses a fable about a character called David the Dragon. And this quote really introduces the core idea.
that our bodies have this internal energy flow, kind of like the rivers and streams of the earth.
So this whole story about the dragon is really just a metaphor for how our own bodies work. Those rivers and streams are our energy pathways, and when we're stressed out or unhealthy, those pathways get clogged up, which leads to stagnation or what the source cleverly calls dis-ease. It's just a simple fable to explain the ancient logic that's behind practices like acupuncture.
All right, so all of these mind-body tools, they come together into one final, really powerful idea about how to fundamentally rewire an athlete's mind to get to peak performance.
The source's whole argument really hinges on this model of the mind. It claims that our conscious thoughts, the ones we're aware of, are only in control about 5% of the time. The other 95%, all our reactions, our deep-seated habits, our gut instincts, that's all being driven by our subconscious programming, which is built from all of our past experiences and traumas.
So if you really want to change your performance on a deep level, you've got to reprogram that 95%. And for this, the source suggests a pretty modern tool: mind movies. Basically, these are personalized videos that you create, filled with positive affirmations and images, and they're designed to be watched right before you go to sleep. Their goal is to bypass that critical conscious mind and feed new, empowering instructions directly into the subconscious.
And all of this leaves us with one final big question. From quantum fields to Aikido to these mind movies, the source really challenges our entire idea of what athletic training even is. It suggests that the next frontier in sports isn't just about building a stronger body, but about developing a deeper mastery of the inner game. A fascinating and definitely radical perspective on what it truly takes to win.